Olsen/Getty. Megan Halasek went to drive. Larry Nassar is a 15-year-old gymnast suffering from a fractured spine, but during what was supposed to be a routine appointment, Nassar assaulted her, again and again and again. Halasek testified in court last week. "He abused me, all the while telling me stories about his Olympic journey. I closed my eyes tight, I held my breath, and I wanted to puke," she recalled. To this day, those feelings are still there. Halasek is one of more than 150 women who came forward with harrowing testimony at the sentencing hearing for Nassar, a former doctor for USA Gymnastics and sports medicine physician at Michigan State University who has pleaded guilty to charges of criminal sexual conduct and child pornography. On Wednesday, after 7 days of survivors' statements, a judge sentenced Nassar up to 175 years in prison for his crimes. "I just signed your death warrant," Judge Rosemarie Aquilina said upon delivering the sentence. The former doctor has already been sentenced to 60 years on federal child pornography charges. Nassar read his own apology letter to the court before his sentencing. Nassar, at one point turning to face the gallery, said the victim's words had shaken him to his core. "There are no words that can describe the depth and breadth of how sorry I am for what has occurred," he said. Judge Aquilina, however, wasn't moved. She read aloud a letter Nassar had submitted to the court during his hearing, in which he complained about the length of the survivors' testimony, deriding it as a media circus, and accusing the survivors of fabricating their testimony. The courtroom gave a collective gasp after the judge read Nassar's words. "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned." Judge Aquilina reads from Larry Nassar's letter submitted to the court. "I was a good doctor because my treatments worked, and those patients who are now speaking out are the same ones that praised and came back. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned." pic.twitter.com/LL177XJT. BuzzFeed News. At BuzzFeed News, January 24, 2018. "It is my honor and privilege to sentence you," the judge told Nassar. "You do not deserve to walk outside of prison ever again. You have done nothing to control those urges, and anywhere you walk, destruction will occur to those most vulnerable." Nassar will still face one more sentencing hearing at the end of this month, though, as the judge made clear on Wednesday, he will spend the rest of his life in prison. His punishment includes nearly 7 days of survivors' statements, who recounted, sometimes through tears, their encounters with Nassar. Originally, about 100 women were expected to testify in 4 days, but, by the end, more than 150 spoke in court, or had prosecutors read their statements. Among the victims are decorated U.S. Olympians, including Aly Raisman, Gabby Douglas, and Simone Biles, but the majority were not famous competitors. They were students and young female athletes, gymnasts, dancers, and volleyball players. Nassar's reputation as a well-connected, talented doctor won their trust. It also helped secure their silence. Nassar's sentencing comes amid a larger reckoning about sexual assault and harassment in all arenas, from Hollywood to hotel rooms, and the people in power negligent or complicit in protecting those perpetrators. Even given the headlines of the past few months, the Nassar case is shocking. First, there's the number of known victims. More than 160 have come forward, which, as HuffPost's Elena Vaginos writes, represents nearly as many victims as the Jerry Sandusky, Bill Cosby, and Harvey Weinstein scandals combined. Many of the victims were minors, sometimes abused with their parents in the room while they were medically examined. There is evidence that Michigan State University and USA Gymnastics, the two elite institutions associated with Nassar, were slow to act on reports that he was abusing girls and young women. Here's what we know about the case against Nassar, where it stands now, and why elite gymnasts may have ended up particularly vulnerable. Who is Larry Nassar? Scott Olsen/Getty Images. Nassar practiced at the very top tier with some of the most elite American gymnasts. In 1986, he began working with USA Gymnastics, the governing body that selects Olympic teams, as an athletic trainer. After he went to medical school at Michigan State University, he became the chief medical coordinator for USA Gymnastics in 1996. At photos taken at the 1996 Olympics, he's pictured next to American gymnast Kerri Strug after her famous ankle injury, and he attended the Games in Sydney in 2000, Beijing in 2008, and London in 2012. He was also part of the faculty at Michigan State, where he had taught and practiced medicine since 1997, meaning he wasn't only a renowned sports physician but also part of an academic institution. Then in September 2015, Nassar abruptly retired from USA Gymnastics with little fanfare. He'd stepped down from his chief medical coordinator position but had originally planned to stay on as the team doctor for the 2016 Olympics. A year later, a flood of sexual assault allegations began to explain why. More than 100 women have accused Nassar of sexual abuse from left. Ali Raisman, Madison Koshin, Lori Hernandez, Simone Biles, and Gabby Douglas win gold in Rio. Raisman, Biles, and Douglas have said Nassar abused them. David Ramos/Getty Images. In 2016, the Indianapolis Star ran a scathing expose on USA Gymnastics' systematic failure to protect young athletes from sexual abuse and to report allegations against coaches to authorities. It opened the floodgates and eventually led to dozens of allegations against the physician. The initial article focused on coaches and did not name Nassar, but Rachel Dean Hollander of Louisville, Kentucky, reached out to a publication with her own story of abuse and filed a criminal complaint with the Michigan State University Police. In it, she alleged that Nassar had sexually abused her in 2000, when she was 15. Dean Hollander had sought treatment from Nassar for lower back pain at his sports treatment clinic at MSU, and she alleged that the doctor, without gloves, digitally penetrated her vagina and anus, and at another visit unhooked her bra and massaged her bare breasts with a visible erection. "He's the type of person who knows how to make you want to trust him," Dean Hollander told the Indy Star in the September 2016 story. "There's a reason he's risen to this place of prominence. And honestly, part of what grieves me so much is that he has everything he needs to be an incredible leader. He has the personality, he has the skill, he has the knowledge, and he's using that to prey on people. What a waste." Around the same time, Jane Doe, who later identified herself as Jamie Donkshire, who competed with Team USA in 2000 at the Sydney Games, filed a civil suit in California against Nassar, alleging that he abused her repeatedly between 1994 and 2000. Dozens of allegations followed, all similar, about a trusted doctor who offered relief only to molest them under the guise of treatment. "For years, Mr. Nassar convinced me that he was the only person who could help me recover from multiple serious injuries. To me, he was like a knight in shining armor." Alexis Moore, who said Nassar molested her starting when she was 9, said in court last week. "But alas, was Shine blinded me from the abuse. He betrayed my trust, took advantage of my youth and sexually abused me hundreds of times." Eventually, 125 women filed criminal complaints with police, and more than 140 people have filed civil suits against the doctor and the institutions that employed him for so long, most notably USA Gymnastics and Michigan State University. Some of the victims say coaches and administrators were aware of complaints against Nassar, but no actions were taken against him. The victims, all women, include notable U.S. Olympians Ali Raisman, Gabby Douglas, and Michaela Maroney. Jordan Weber, 4 members of the Fierce 5 2012 gold medal winning team, stated publicly that Nassar sexually abused them. Weber came forward for the first time this Friday. Simone Biles, one of the most decorated gymnasts of all time, just said this week that Nassar abused her too. Nassar's victims said the doctor cannily won over their trust, making them feel special or privileged because of his position with USA Gymnastics. He operated in a sport where injuries can end careers, and young athletes deferred to his authority. Even Olympic athletes were told to feel grateful for Nassar's care. Raisman said an official with USA Gymnastics told her she should feel lucky for his treatment because he was such a good doctor. Victims testified that he gave them gifts, offering trinkets from his Olympic travels. He was also outwardly supportive and kind to many of those he abused. "He was always on my side," Raisman told Time magazine. "He was always that person who would stick up for me and make me feel like he had my back. The more I think about it, the more I realize how twisted he was, how he manipulated me to make me think that he had my back when he didn't." Nassar, after initially denying the allegations of abuse and defending vaginal penetration as part of his medical treatment, pleaded guilty in 2 Michigan counties to a total of 10 counts of criminal sexual assault. The cases all involve women or girls who were assaulted by Nassar during the course of a medical examination, except one girl, a family friend of Nassar's whom he abused for 6 years, between the ages of 6 and 12. In addition to the charges in Michigan, federal prosecutors charged Nassar in December 2016 with possession of child pornography. saying that the doctor had about 37,000 explicit images in his possession. Investigators discovered this cache while executing a search warrant related to an investigation into sex abuse allegations against Nassar, which stemmed from his work with USA Gymnastics. Nassar ultimately agreed to plead guilty in July to the possession of child porn, but as part of the deal, he avoided the more serious federal sex abuse charges, which ESPN reported included allegations that he molested children in his home, in his pool, and during interstate/international travel. A judge sentenced him to 60 years in prison, the maximum prosecutors had asked for. Last month, the sentencing this week is for the criminal sexual abuse charges. USA Gymnastics knew about Nassar's abuse for weeks before reporting it, as in other recent sexual abuse scandals, involving retired football coach Jerry Sandusky at Penn State and within the Catholic Church, among others. A big question is what the institutions involved knew and when they knew it. Current and former members of USA Gymnastics have delivered scathing criticisms of the organization for its handling of Nassar. Dozens of members are suing the organization for negligence. A handful of lawsuits have also named famed U.S. Gymnastics coaches Bela and Martha Karolyi, who ran the training center in Texas where elite gymnasts trained. USA Gymnastics ended its relationship with the Karolyis last week, on Friday, prompted by a scathing letter from the U.S. Olympic Committee. The entire board of USA Gymnastics agreed to resign. 3 members of the USA Gymnastics board of directors had already stepped down amid pressure this week, including Chair Paul Perilla and Vice Chair Jay Binder. Until now, just Steve Penny, the CEO of USA Gymnastics for more than 10 years, was the only person to lose his job. He resigned in March 2017 as the scandal unfolded. He was also named in several lawsuits. USA Gymnastics heard about allegations against Nassar in June 2015, according to the Indianapolis Star. A coach overheard the U.S. national team member, who is Manly's client, and another elite gymnast discussing the doctor at the Karolyi Ranch, the women's national team's training center in Texas. The coach reported the conversation to USA Gymnastics Senior Vice President of Women's Program Rhonda Finon, June 17, 2015, according to USA Gymnastics, and Finon immediately called Steve Penny, the organization's president, but the organization waited 5 weeks to contact law enforcement officials about the incident, justifying the delay by saying it had conducted its own independent review. The Wall Street Journal later reported that the case, which bounced around FBI field offices, didn't begin in earnest until about April 2016, 10 months after the first allegations were reported. "I'm so angry that, after realizing that we were abused, they let him continue to molest other gymnasts when they told me there was an investigation going on," Raisman told ESPN's Outside the Lines, referring to USA Gymnastics. "They told me to be quiet. I thought that they were doing the right thing, and I didn't want to tip off the investigation. I trusted them and I shouldn't have." Meanwhile, other gymnasts reached settlements that would keep them from speaking publicly. Michaela Maroney, who won gold with Raisman in 2012 in London, reportedly faced a $100,000 fine from USA Gymnastics if she spoke out about Nassar. She originally came forward in December 2016, as part of a $1.25 million settlement. USA Gymnastics later issued a statement that said it has not sought and will not seek any money from Michaela Maroney for her brave statements made in describing her victimization and abuse by Larry Nassar. The problems at USA Gymnastics weren't limited to Nassar, as revealed in the Indianapolis Star's extensive investigation. The Star discovered a pattern of coaches and others failing to report sex abuse to authorities and later uncovered more than 360 cases spanning 20 years in which gymnasts accused coaches of sexual misconduct. The organization had hired a former federal prosecutor, Deborah Daniels, last November to conduct an independent review on how it handles sexual assault allegations. The review, released in June 2017, is striking in the obviousness of its recommendations, including that all members of USA Gymnastics report abuse immediately to authorities. USA Gymnastics is, in some ways, still reeling from the Nassar allegations. Daniels called for a complete cultural change at the organization, and cited the atmosphere, where elite athletes are trained and taught to defer to authority figures such as coaches, as contributing to the roadblocks of rooting out and reporting abuse. USA Gymnastics unanimously adopted all 70 of the recommendations for implementation. The microscope is also on Michigan State University. Carrie Hogan, a softball player at MSU, reads her victim impact statement. Photo by Scott Olson/Getty Images. Many of Nassar's victims say Michigan State has yet to answer for enabling Nassar. Some of the lawsuits filed against the university say coaches, staff, and other university employees knew of the allegations against Nassar, and others have told ESPN magazine and Detroit News that they warned coaches, trainers, and other university officials about his misconduct long before he was finally fired in 2016. The fallout has begun, spurred by the survivor's excruciating testimony this week. The Department of Education has opened a formal investigation into the university, so has the NCAA. Michigan Attorney General Bill Scoot has also indicated his office will embark on a full review of the Nassar case. On Wednesday, hours after Nassar's sentencing and amid building pressure, MSU President Lou Anna Simon announced she would step down. Simon said in a statement that his tragedies are politicized. Blame is inevitable. As president, it is only natural that I am the focus of this anger. MSU's popular athletics director Mark Hollis also retired Friday. He told reporters he wasn't forced into retirement and will cooperate with investigators. Our campus and beyond have been attacked by evil, he said. We must listen and learn lessons. Only then can we truly begin the process of healing. Reporting cast stat on MSU's line that it first heard of Nassar's misconduct in 2016. ESPN Outside the Lines interviewed 4 women who said they told MSU coaches or trainers about Nassar as far back as the 1990s. 2 of those women said that they told Kathy Klages, MSU's longtime gymnastic coach, in 1997 about Nassar. Klages resigned in February. Others came forward after that. Tiffany Thomas Lopez, a former MSU softball player, told ESPN she complained about Nassar to 3 athletic trainers in 1998. I felt like they thought I was a liar, Thomas Lopez says. She eventually met with Destiny Teachner-Hawk, an athletic training supervisor. She brushed me off, and made it seem like I was crazy. She made me feel like I was crazy. A separate Detroit News investigation found that no less than 14 MSU officials or representatives were aware of allegations against Nassar in the nearly 20 years before his arrest. At least 8 women and girls had made complaints, including one who contacted local police officials. In 2014, the university launched a Title IX investigation into Nassar after a recent MSU graduate reported that she had visited his clinic for hip pain, and he had massaged her breasts and vaginal area and appeared to be sexually aroused as he did so. The university closed the investigation after 3 months. In July 2014, it dismissed the woman's claim, concluding that she hadn't understood the nuanced difference between sexual assault and inappropriate medical procedure. According to the Indianapolis Star, the university consulted 4 experts to draw their conclusions, all of whom had ties to both the university and Nassar. The university attempted to reopen the 2014 Title IX investigation in December 2016, after a slew of women came forward against Nassar. The woman involved is now suing the university, along with dozens of others. The Title IX investigation also forced police to open a criminal probe. The Lansing State Journal reported that MSU police also launched an investigation, as required by the Title IX complaint, and the Ingham County prosecutors also declined to bring charges. Meanwhile, Nassar was allowed to see patients during that 2014 criminal investigation. What's more, both USA Gymnastics and MSU admitted that they did not communicate to each other that Nassar was under investigation by their separate institutions, according to Michigan Live. As the women delivered their impact statements in court this week, they also called out the university, alongside USA Gymnastics, for their lack of accountability. It's horrifying that MSU and USA Gymnastics are not stepping up to their plate to admit their wrongdoing, Olivia Cohen said during her statement. I've gone from a raving fan of MSU to now seeing green, white in the very same way I do Larry Nassar. I want MSU and USA